Welcome everybody to Center Stage. I am Rajiv, and today I have with me Amy Messano from Altair. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So Amy is dialing in, I believe, from Troy, Michigan.
Correct.
And
right.
Okay, and I want to just give a quick little overview about Altair. So Altair is a global technology company that provides software and cloud solutions in the areas of product development, high performance computing, and data intelligence. They have over 2,000 plus scientists, engineers, and creative thinkers in 25 countries, serving over 5,000 customers. Amazing. Did I get that right?
You did. I just joined here in January, so I'm still learning a ton, but have been equally impressed by the depth and breadth of both the portfolio of software and the people and the experience and sophistication of the scientists and engineers and marketers who I am now have the privilege to work with.
That sounds great. So let's talk about that. So you've been there for only 6 months, and what does your onboarding look like? What were your first 90 days like?
So I came at a very interesting time at the company. They just became publicly traded about a year ago as of November, and we have been very acquisitive over the past several years. And the last big company that they bought was a company called Data Watch out of Boston, which was a data company of itself, had been a combination of 3 separate companies that combined data preparation, data visualization, and data. So it's kind of outside of the traditional wheelhouse of Altair's, the other products that you mentioned. So it's kind of a coming together. They see this future where simulation and all this fantastic engineering software meets data, and then you layer in machine learning and AI. So it's this sort of incredible culmination of all these really deep technologies, and they're made possible by things like high performance computing. So they sort of have assembled this incredible stack of technology. So when I came in, it was sort of with combine these teams, these marketing teams and corporate communications teams. And
okay.
I sort of look at it as a long-term and a short-term. So the short-term is obviously creating leads and keeping lead generation at an uptick, keeping growing. But at the long-term is more establishing a brand, a global brand for this kind of combination of companies. And Altair itself has grown up around their products. So people in the community are really familiar with their products, but globally not as familiar with the name Altair. So I'm sort of looking at a short-term and a long-term of lead generation, and the long-term is brand creation. I had to do that. The first thing was to create and structure the team to build the infrastructure so that we could accomplish both of those things.
Love it. So let's break both those down. So let's talk about the long term. The company was founded, I believe, in 1985. It's been around for quite a while. Just went public last year, as you mentioned. So in terms of sort of the brand and sort of the storytelling and bringing this culmination of these different entities together, what is your thought process, and how do you sort of frame that into telling a story and representing a sort of the next chapter of the brand of the company?
Right. So the way I look at it, so I work with a lot of engineers. And I have for the past 20 years of my career. So I'm not an engineer, but I'm my engineer pocket translator, which I pull out. I sort of think I speak engineers. So the ways to translate they have is that because they are so heavy in the engineering force, they have really found their comfort zone in talking in tech specs and going real deep, real fast. Where I am sort of trying to pull out these incredible stories. The Altair technology is in every part of your day. It is in the buildings that we sit in. It is in the desk that is made. It is in the car and the car seats. I've got 3 kids, and golf clubs and tennis rackets and airplanes and spaceships. And it's every part of your day you're touching something.
Wow.
Altair technology had a hand in making. So it's pulling out those incredible stories of why you should care, the so whats, right? When we talk about in marketing, what impact did it make on someone's life? How did it make a product more sustainable or greener? Or how did it save a company money or achieve goals that they never thought possible before within budget? So things like that, it's not just talking about the tech specs, but what this product actually does and what it can mean for companies and for people in general.
Got it. Okay. And then let's go back to the short-term goals, which is, I think, every marketer's challenge is demand gen, lead gen, getting more leads into the funnel.
Yeah.
And, I think what's really interesting about Altair, as you mentioned, they're everywhere. But
Mhm.
really, I mean, let me just break down some of the industries you guys serve: aerospace, architecture, automotive, consumer products, electronics, energy, life sciences. So a bunch of different industries, a lot
Mhm.
of different decision makers and stakeholders and personas. When you think about short-term lead gen, how do you prioritize going after which industries? Is it a parallel strategy? Do you sort of pick one over the other? Where you're getting
You know, it's an interesting question because we are sort of trying to expand that universe. So we've had Altair has sort of very sticky in both their employee base and their customer base. Once they find someone and they bring them into this great culture and these great products, people don't leave. The employee retention rate is incredible, and actually same with the customers. Once they get in, because they have a sort of a unique business model for the way they actually, you don't buy an enterprise license, you buy what they call units, and then you kind of use it like a library card. So teams all over the world can, pull down these units. So because of that and their products, which are best in breed, customers don't leave. But we also have competitors who are trying to infiltrate our space.
Mhm.
They were born with these PhD level analysts, right? And we're trying to go to more the citizen analysts, and same for data, people who they don't have a PhD, but they use it in their job. So democratizing the software, making it easier to use, out of the box, ready to go, much simpler. So where we were focused sort of at this PhD level, we're really bringing it down to a broader universe, which opens up they can sell to any kind of size company, and if you make something, we can sell it to you,
Okay.
which I think is incredibly awesome as a company because the possibilities are endless, and it's actually the way their revenues come in. They're sort of split evenly between Americas, EMEA, and APAC. So they're globally diverse, and they're, like you said, almost any industry they can have a solution that we need to help them sort of do their jobs better. So for us, it's like you said, that's a big wide universe. So how do you target the people? We use social media quite often. We're actually trying to get better and a little bit more sophisticated in how we do that. But we've had this very, very loyal customer base upon which we have built our business, and we are trying to expand that. So we're in the process of trying to find and break our way, clawing and hammering into new customers who've never heard of us.
Okay.
It's the hard part.
Let's double click on social media for a second. Again, every marketer has social media as part of their toolkit. What have you found to be an effective strategy when it comes to social media, and are there any platforms that are working better for Altair than another?
So when I first came in, because it's been very entrepreneurial, we had a pretty dispersed footprint when it came to social media because we have so many different product lines and in so many countries. So local language is important. So we've tried to consolidate where it's logical and allow local language, local companies to be relevant. I sort of work on the role of, corporate sort of 80%, but then you take it and make it locally relevant. I use the example with my team that if you're in Starbucks, anywhere in the world, you're in Starbucks, but you can get a different tea in Japan that you can in China versus, in Mexico. You can get different stuff off the menu, but you're at Starbucks. So I'm trying to, get the team to say, okay, we're Altair, but I can talk about how it's locally relevant where I live. So for us, LinkedIn is hands down our most effective tool because we can hyper target those specific types of engineers or data scientists or data analysts where they live. So we use Facebook. We're starting our Instagram a little bit better. But part of it, you could say, is generational. There's different age groups that are,
Sure.
they navigate to different channels.
Yeah.
But for us, holistically speaking, hands down, LinkedIn is our most successful.
Got it. And you mentioned team. Can you maybe talk about your team? Again, the company is in 25 countries.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing your team is distributed.
They are.
So what's the structure of your team, and sort of what's your management style? And tell us a little bit about your approach when it comes to your team.
Yep. So again, Altair was very entrepreneurial, and when they grew up, and they have been growing up, and they sort of have these dispersed teams all over the world. They were not as connected to corporate until maybe like about a year ago. So I've worked real hard to I did my kind of world tour with a couple of key folks and got to know everybody and meet with them and learn the incredible work that they're doing. So do a better job of things like best practice sharing. So if someone in Shanghai is doing an incredible job, then the person in Munich should be able to benefit and scale it out. So it doesn't always have to be, well, this is an idea that came from corporate, which like a dirty word. The field has to do it, but no, I want to hear those awesome things that you are doing in the field so that the rest of the world can do it. So trying to get more of a generalized, so we can build that brand, right? Repetition is very important. Consistency is critical when building a brand. Yep. So some of those ideas, they're not going to come from here. They can come from anywhere in the world. Right. Awesome ones out of our team in England. So things like that, we're trying to find those golden nuggets and then share them broadly. So my management style has always been to hire smart people, empower them to do their jobs, and get the hell out of the way. But for me, in this particular circumstance, is really kind of wrapping my arms around the team, and we're all on the same team. I keep saying marketing is a team sport. We have to work to the same goal and make sure that we're all, to another cliche, rowing in the same direction, but really there was some basic blocking and tackling to do that. And the teams have been super excited to get support.
And how big is your team?
We have just shy of 100 people. So it's a really healthy team.
And in terms of sort of all getting in alignment and sort of, marching to the same rhythm, what are some of the challenges with having a team that's that large and distributed or dispersed around the globe?
Well, part of it is just, one, the education that why it makes sense to them, why it will help them to snap into sort of a corporate agenda or strategy. And I think we've crossed that milestone. So how it will help them. And I think part of it is flexibility, right? So we have an all hands call every month and we start at 7 a.m., which is early for the people on the East Coast. It's brutal for the people on the West Coast, but it's logical for the people in India and China. But we're going to start to do things like, okay, next time we're going to do it at 7 o'clock at night Eastern time. Things like that. The people in Europe are always golden because it's always the middle of the day for them. But
like 4 a.m. in California for West Coast.
Right. So we're doing things like recording them, and it's not mandatory. So if you can't make it, we share it. We're big on email, as funny as that sounds. But we're bringing in some new tools for scheduling and for content sharing to make sure that everybody can see the same content. We're getting a dam. They hadn't had a dam before. So things like that. We are investing in some tools to make sure that we can all see what's coming so that they can plan instead of just saying, do this tomorrow, this is coming in 6 weeks. So if you need a translation, if you need to plan events or webinars or whatever you need to do to bring it to life in your local market, you have enough time to plan on that.
Got it. And speaking of tools, what does your MarTech stack look like today?
So we use HubSpot for automation. We are looking at bringing on a company called Reich for scheduling. We had been using Asana. It's been great too. We use the DAM system that we're going to bring in. I have to check because I can't remember the name that Kanta. That's the name. I'll double check on that one. Okay. But part of that too is when we buy these companies, they have a completely separate set of tools. So we have to sort of migrate and use Salesforce. Sure. So, we have a kind of right now a hodgepodge of tools, and we're getting to that best practice, and some of it is comparing which one will stand the test of time, because all these other companies, big or small, some have their own set of tools.
Yeah, sure. I want to talk about your career a little bit. You have quite an extensive background, and you spent over nearly 10 years at Microsoft.
Yep.
And you ran PR, I think, at Microsoft at a certain time. Tell me about what was that sort of experience like, and how did it sort of shape who you are today as a marketer?
Sure. Well, I did not run PR for the whole company, so just to be clear about that. For
let me reframe the question.
Let me trouble with Frank Shaw.
Hold on. I have your LinkedIn right here. You are. Let me see. You spent global PR manager. I apologize.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I spent 10 years at Microsoft, and I absolutely loved it. It was a fantastic company to work for. I learned so much. I started out in the U.S. region. A PR job that quickly became a marketing job. That was back in the day when they were still kind of building up their field practice and sort of elevating the skills of the field. Started off in what was called the Great Lakes District, moved to the Central region, and then the US, and then I moved to a global a global role. So the first 5 years was sort of a US based marketing job, the second 5 years, and had always had PR kind of sprinkled in for local stuff. And then the second 5 years were a Seattle based global role. And I left my last job, which I just adored, was leading PR for global for the small and mid market and partner section, which in and of itself is a $17 billion segment for Microsoft. So it was super fun. I loved it.
And let's talk about PR for a minute, because again, another sort of tool when it comes to marketing. And I think a lot of companies, mostly smaller ones, probably are not quite sure when to sort of pull the trigger when it comes to PR and why PR is effective and how do you measure the effectiveness of PR. Tell me about your point of view when it comes to PR and why it matters.
PR is my sort of closest, nearest, and dearest to my heart. It's always kind of been my passion. I worked before Microsoft my whole career up to that point, which was, I don't know, 10 years or so. I don't want to say how old. I've been doing this for a long time. Media relations and public relations, I think, is critical for air cover. Is your best bargain. You can still get the biggest bang for your buck, I think. It has changed over the years, obviously, with the advent of social media, and these worlds have kind of come. I believe they all need to go together. I kind of view earned, owned, and paid are kind of a three-legged stool where they should all sit in the same shop. But media relations specifically, Bill Gates used to say, which I know everyone has heard on this call probably, that if he had $2, he'd spend one on PR. I just think it's a way to be able to tell your story for anybody. It takes work though. I mean, you have to pick up the phone and call reporters. It's relationship building. You have to spend time. You have to find something that's relevant and trending. People care about it. Newsrooms have shrunk. When the recession hit in 2008, they fell apart like everybody else did. And I don't know that they've all rebuilt. So they look for not just stories, but content, videos, graphics, photos, anything like that that can help them tell a more compelling story, but not like an advertisement, in a true sort of educational way. So what's your opinion on a certain topic that is trending right now? So I think it's important. I think it's critical. Agencies are great. You have to have somebody kind of in the house looking out for what the editorial story, the strategies. Finding good spokespeople is hard. Training good spokespeople is hard. It takes time, but I think it's a very important tool to use. And everyone has a story. I mean, I think that's something I've always found in my career. I did media relations for 5 years before Microsoft at a utility, natural gas and electric utility and nuclear. And it's fascinating. I mean, you can find, if you really take the time to tell a story, I found that fascinating. You can find anything kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you sleep with your pager under your pillow in case something blew up, but which did, things like that happen.
Wait, what's a pager?
Right? Did I say that out loud? But I did. So you can find anything interesting if you can find a way to tell that story.
Yeah. So again, speaking of story, I'd love to, I'm really curious about, let's bring it back to Altair and sort of this HPC, this high performance computing. Yeah. And some of the videos you have developed on the website I think are really amazing. But talk to us a little bit specifically about high performance computing and what that is.
So for some of these software tools, they require an amazing amount of compute power, and they're called bursting, where you might not need it all the time, but if you're going to run these, they call them solvers, these incredibly complex mathematical problems. Basically, these guys are all mathematicians at heart. There's engineers, these PhDs, and they think that, and they know they're much smarter than I am. Again, I am not an engineer, but you have to have a massive amount of computational power to execute these algorithms and these solvers that are solving things. We have a product called SimSolid that's still, people don't believe that it works the way it does, because it used to take something 3 weeks and then they got it down to, a day, and now they can do it in minutes and hours. Wow. But in order to perform those massive solvers or calculations, you need the ability to have cloud computing to facilitate it all. So it's an underlying support system, if you will, to actually make these things possible, because you need to have some massive computing power to run these calculations, these solvers.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. It sounds amazing. So again, you've been there for 6 months. What's been some of the most challenging things? You may have touched on it in terms of bringing the brand together, and what's been some of the more rewarding aspects of your job so far?
I would say the rewarding is the culture, and the people have been fantastic. You're always a little bit nervous. Did I do the right thing? Is it the right place for me? Is it a great company? I knew that the software stack was there. I knew that the caliber of people was there. I knew that their growth trajectory was like this, but I didn't know until I got here just how great the people were. I would say above anything else, I think I am just fantastically impressed by, one, the caliber of the team, marketing team, and of the rest of the company. But the culture that they have created is very unique, and it's people centric. I worked at companies that say that and don't do it, and I worked at companies that did do it. But this is I kind of liken it to a smaller Microsoft back in the day, where they know that people are their bread and butter. They can't do anything without the people, so they truly do value them and try to keep them and develop them. And Altair is they're very people centric. They're very family friendly. So that's been the best part for me personally. The challenges have been I had to learn about a whole new industry. I know how to sell software. I know technology. I know cars, but I didn't know anything about simulation and that kind of level of software.
Yes.
I had to learn a lot, get to know people. It's always hard when you get to know the team. You have to learn about this sort of disparate, massive stack of software and products. Global footprint, the people, just getting to know the people, the systems, the tools, all of that always takes a lot of time. So that's more just a day-to-day sort of time.
Sure.
Time to learn that kind of stuff.
Ongoing, I mean, drinking from the fire hose right now, but
Exactly.
yeah, I think eventually it'll settle in for sure. It sounds like an amazing place to work. Let's talk about work. You mentioned you have 3 boys.
I do.
Okay, so how do you sort of achieve work-life balance, being a mom of 3 boys and having a pretty intense job as a CMO at Altair?
Yeah, there was the CHRO at Microsoft. Her name was Lisa Brummel back in the day, and she called it life-work integration, and that has always stuck with me because
I like that.
Sort of balancing one against the other. They come together, right? You have to leave school to pick up a sick kid, or you want to go attend a sports game or a conference or whatever it is.
Sure.
So that has always stuck with me. That was not my own, that's hers, the integration piece. But I think it's more of how do you make that you weave them together, because it's not pitting one against the other. It's bringing them together. So I wanted to find a place to work where I could do that. I do have the capability to do that here, which I appreciate. And my kids have never known any different. My husband is fantastic. I have a fantastic nanny. So that makes all the difference in the world. But I'm at the point in my career where I'm not embarrassed to say, listen, there is a very important meeting at school at 3:00, or, he really wants me to come watch. My little guy started his Pee Wee soccer yesterday, and it started at 4:30, and I left to be there at 4:30 because he wanted me to go. So I've reached a point where I'm confident enough to say, I need to be here. Of course, I'll get back online later and catch up. And
Sure.
It's my management style too. All of us, even if you're not a parent, it doesn't matter if you're a mom or your dad. I don't care what gender you are. If you have kids, you're a working parent. But also, people have other things. If they don't have kids, they have sick pets or whatever. So I think that I don't care where you work as long as you get your work done, and I trust people to do so.
Makes a lot of sense. I agree completely. Do you have any daily habits or rituals that you do that keeps you focused and productive?
Walking is kind of my sort of internal therapy. I don't listen to music or anything. I just have to take a walk every day, and that's how I kind of think through stuff. Love yoga when I have time to do it.
Nice.
And I read every night. Those are kind of and maybe a glass of wine here and there, but
What was the last part?
maybe a glass of wine.
A glass of wine, of course.
They never hurt anybody, but I think those things, and obviously I need time with my family, but walking, yoga, reading, those are kind of sort of self-care things. And then the rest, I have to spend time with my family. And
Yeah, I love it. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Anything that you could recommend in terms of your reading list that you can share with the audience?
Oh gosh, I am unmoored without a good book. I'm just a reader. I always have one. I drive my husband bananas if I don't have a good book. So the last one I read was Where the Crawdads Sing, which is a beautifully written book, sort of Pat Conroy-esque, if you know who he is.
I don't, but I'll find out.
Yeah, it's sort of that low country based in South Carolina area, but it's very lyrical writing. It's beautiful writing. Had a surprise ending. I just read Something in the Water. That was kind of a whodunit mystery kind of good one. I I've read. I'm already reading something. Those I won't bore you more, but those are the two most recent ones that I've.
Definitely not boring me. Okay. So Amy, thanks so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Amy Messano, Chief Marketing Officer from Altair. It's just been great.
Thanks, Rajiv. It's been wonderful. I've had fun.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching. This is Rajiv from Center Stage. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.